Chapter 1. Following my bliss to the Cotswolds. "Come on, you two, get off your big fat bums and help me catch the donkey. He's halfway to Dickleborough by now." The local postmistress dragged my mother and me out of our comfortable garden chairs before she tore off, yelling for more volunteers. We felt strangely compelled to do as she said, and soon found ourselves following her down the leafy lane of a small village in the English countryside. It was my mother who got me interested in spending time in the country. She was quite a character, my mother. When my old sod of a father died, I encouraged her to marry again. And to get her thinking along those lines, I asked her to name someone she fancied. I told her to pick any man in the world, someone like the actor Patrick Stewart, perhaps. She thought for a few seconds, and then she said, "Joseph Stalin." "Stalin," I protested. "But, Mum, he sent thousands of people to Siberia, and they never came back. How could you possibly fancy him?" She replied, "Well, he's no worse than your father, dear." She decided not to pursue any more relationships for the moment, and instead filled her time with gentle trips to small villages, where she pottered around antique fairs and rummage sales. As a poor East End kid, she had made drawings of chickens with 4 legs because she had never seen one on a farm. Her first visit to the country as a young woman had been such a revelation that she would be transported when she talked about it. Her descriptions were so poetic that I began to share in her enthusiasm, and the next summer, when she rented a cottage in the country for a week, I tagged along. After escaping the screaming boredom of the London suburbs, I found myself as fascinated as my mother had been on her first visit to a small village. It was like a trip to a foreign land or even another universe. The perfume of roasted saddle of lamb with apricots and garlic, the fragrance of a raft of June roses, the feel of uneven flagstones of a 1,000-year-old church, the taste of a handful of ripe blackberries greedily snatched from a centuries-old hedgerow made me giddy with joy. I was charmed, too, by the local people. They had colour, life, eccentricities, funny speech, wooden legs, and buck teeth. Each one of them also had something I dimly recognised after living too long in the suburbs: a soul. The race was on. We followed the postmistress as she gave chase to a donkey that could just be seen making dust on its way to Dickleborough. It had escaped from its paddock, and everybody in the village yelled, panted, and stumped after it. We tried to keep up with the crowd, the young, the old, the local hairdresser, scissors still in hand, a pack of yapping dogs, and a mad grandad in a wheelchair yelling, "Grab the bastard's tail!" As we reached the next village, yells of triumph from all the villagers deafened us as they almost caught the donkey. But suddenly he broke free, wheeled around, and cantered back to our village. When we returned, he was happily munching hay in his paddock with a sly look in his eye. Apparently, chasing the donkey to Dickleborough was a regular cathartic ritual that all the villagers thoroughly enjoyed. Nothing like this happened in the suburbs. I was hooked. The next opportunity we had to get to the country was when I was in college and my mother invited me to join her for a holiday. A few days in a bed and breakfast on a working farm near Shilton in the Cotswolds. As we drove to our destination, I became enchanted by this region. I couldn't believe how lovely it was. The quiet country lanes would lead out to spectacular views of gently rolling hills covered in a patchwork of fields. Unspoilt countryside stretched as far as the eye could see, with an occasional church spire to guide the way to yet another ancient village. The Cotswolds are located just east and a little bit south of Wales and north of the city of Bath. For several centuries its inhabitants made oodles of money from wool manufacture. When this trade failed, the poverty it created prevented the rapid growth and building boom that made other parts of Great Britain look like winners in the ugliest new building in the world contest. Visitors to the Cotswolds are usually directed to the chocolate box, picture-perfect villages. I was thankful that our route took us along narrow lanes far away from these areas and showed a wilder, more interesting Cotswolds.